but I think people are interested.
It's a very interesting what you've said, because there has been this debate in India whether the centripetal push or the centrifugal push. And there has been this, what we call the Hindi belt, where you have UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and in the Hindi belt one would even tend to add Gujarat and to some extent even Maharashtra. This constitutes the Hindi. Now this is where the centripetal element comes in. The rest of the country actually represents the centrifugal part of it. And here you said something very interesting. You said, for the first time, a regional leader is coming to the center to lead a strong central government. Don't you see a paradox there, Combe? A regional leader trying to lead a strong center.
I think it's a very healthy proposition, in the sense that it does take the central power out of the hands of what was perceived to be a centralized elite, that was mostly in Delhi and in the very big metros. And obviously, as in all very large-sized democracies, look at the US, there is that alternation between governors and senators vying for the presidency. I think this has to happen in India too, and I have a feeling that many people who are part of the inside Beltway crowd are uncomfortable with somebody coming from outside, quite outside other considerations. There is a sense that, he's not one of us. So that creates additional difficulties, let's face it, for any incoming leader who has to make his mark on the national level and to somehow shape and mold the bureaucracy at the center.
What has been the role of the media, you think, in shaping these elections?
Well, we can clearly see that the media can build up characters. There's no doubt that the Aam Aadmi Party, for example, got a big boost, I think, after doing well in the Delhi elections, with a lot of speculation in the media that it would potentially break out and become a national party, that it would be able to reach out to the urban middle-class parts of not just Delhi, but of course Lucknow, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, and so on, that maybe it could be a national force. And I think to some degree the media has built up Arvind Kejriwal's expectations and hopes, and now in the last few weeks has somewhat brought them down again. So I think the media has played a role here. But I don't know that we can say for sure that it actually changes decisively what the outcome of the election would be. I think a lot of what people come to decide when they're deciding how to vote is based on word of mouth. It's
Adam,
villagers
why
getting
don't
together.
you look at it this way? On the 7th of December 2013, you, Combe, me, no one knew what is in the cards on December 8. When we picked up our hands, we discovered that the Congress party had been routed in 4 states, and in Delhi, a completely new power had arisen on a scale that no one had predicted.
But Delhi, in the end, as much as we live here and think it's the most important part of India, Delhi is a small state.
No, what I'm saying is, the point here is that was a surprise. We didn't know on the 7th, and therefore, my tendency would be that I do not know what is likely to be on the 15th of May until I see the results, until I see what is there in the hand on the 16th, because there has been a huge surprise element.
Sure, no, fair enough. I accept that making predictions about Indian politics is a mug's game. It's a very dangerous thing to do. On the other hand, that's our job. We're expected to analyse and try to give some sense to what's happening ahead of time. And maybe we don't trust the opinion polls, but we have to draw our predictions, our analysis from something. And I think we can, looking forward, make some stab in the dark and some guesses to what's coming on the middle of May.
Combe.
I wasn't so surprised by the very good results of the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi, because it was being discussed a lot, and in fact, as you know, the media have been accused of promoting the Aam Aadmi more than would normally be warranted in terms of the size of their support initially. Because it was an interesting phenomenon. The media got very excited and intrigued, and because everybody knew of the need to address certain major problems, which have to do with, we all know, corruption and all that. But this being said, I don't think it was such a surprise, because most people knew Congress would do badly and Aam Aadmi would do very well.
Aam Aadmi Party, we shall resume on that subject, Adam says, as a two-horse race. But let us, in fact, look at 3 or 4 things. What have been the issues in this election? Is it corruption? Is it secularism, and what does that mean? Briefly, is it about nationalism and Hindu nationalism? Is it about on gender issues? And has foreign policy a role to play in this? Quickly, there's very little time, but let's touch on these issues.
Well, I'd say, first of all, it's remarkable how this election has not yet been about secularism or Hinduism or Hindutva. Modi has done a lot not to raise that and to try and stop people talking about that and instead to talk about development and the economy. I think broadly it's about the economy. It's about inflation, the price of onions. It's about jobs. It's about people wanting more higher economic growth so that they can get back to the sort of high expectations they had for a good life that they had previously. 2009, Congress was re-elected because the economy was doing well. 2014, Congress will almost certainly be badly defeated because it's mismanaged the economy. I think it's quite simple when it comes down to what people are thinking about.
Foreign affairs?
First, I quite agree. The economy is paramount. Development. Foreign affairs, I think there is very little clarity and probably not much interest outside specialized circles, except for the fact that Modi is expected to have a very firm foreign policy, which probably will not be particularly slanted towards any one major power. I think he will try to keep good relations and have productive agreements and negotiations with all the majors, whether it's the United States, China, Russia, the European Union, and of course the traditional allies and friends of India in the developing world. So from that viewpoint, you might say there isn't going to be a lot of change, but the perception of a very strong leadership, which is not afraid to project India's power, that is something which you see now in Russia with Vladimir Putin, you see it in some other countries, and I think it's a trend, it's a growing trend, because of the perception that globalization is a threat, that many countries feel they are being pressured from inside and from outside, and therefore there is a natural need or will of self-assertion and self-protection.
I think Modi will want to take advantage of globalization. He'll want to get investors, he'll want to make India a stronger power economically, and then his main foreign policy concerns will be with the neighbors. What will happen with Pakistan, Bangladesh, to some degree Sri Lanka.
Foreign direct investment in retail, well, has he been ambiguous or is he clear?
I think he's been clear, he's against it, and that's quite worrying if you're coming from a pro-growth point of view. It's a fundamental contradiction of his approach.
So that contradiction could be in fact dilated on.
Well, the challenge for him is to find other policies to make up for that, but he's not, I think, going to reverse his position on retail. So instead he might look to get more investment in insurance or some other parts of the Indian economy. But he will need investors. India desperately needs investors, and it'll be up to whoever comes in to try and draw that.
He is going to be, will he be pitching it on sort of powerful Indian nationalism?
I think there'll be some of that. He's already in the campaign talked in a more nationalist way than, for example, Congress leaders would have done. What we don't know is how he would respond in a moment of crisis. How does someone like Modi deal with a terrorist attack, for example? Does he have the maturity to handle that?
And in fact, what with, say, Pakistan, and India can get very jingoistic on both Pakistan and on China. Yeah. And both these are issues on which Modi, and whether he can actually handle it, will be watched very carefully.
Well, I think that a lot will depend upon who he picks in his team to handle foreign affairs, defense, and other critical portfolios. But I think that he will, being perceived as a strong nationalist leader, he will probably be able to make surprisingly flexible accommodations, provided certain critical lines are not crossed, with both Pakistan and China. I would expect, as some others have said, that his first trip might be either Japan or China. And I think he will keep both countries close.
That's very interesting, because, something, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee became Prime Minister, he was BJP, he had come from the RSS stable, and everyone thought that here is now. Actually, our relations with Pakistan improved under that BJP leader. Our relations with China improved under him, and I traveled with him to both these countries. Now, he comes also from the RSS stable, does Modi, but they are two distinct individuals, and that is where the suspense lies. Well, we've run out of time, and we look forward to talking to you again, and maybe even some of your other colleagues. Meanwhile, all eyes are riveted on these elections. So until the next program, thank you and goodbye.